So I actually watched a couple of movies last week, and then I didn't review them, and then I haven't watched any movies. I just burnt out in November. So I'm catching up on my reviews, and then I'm going out of town, and then I'll do more reviews next week. So, um, hope you missed me. The movie I watched last Monday, actually, so I'm like way behind on this review, is called The Party's Just Beginning, and it was written and directed by Karen Gillan, who is probably best known for her work on Doctor Who, but she was also in a short lived ABC sitcom called Selfie, and she is in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. This is her feature film directorial debut, and it's set in her hometown of Inverness, Scotland. And she was inspired to tell this story because Inverness has the highest rate of suicides in the entire UK, and she was sort of exploring that phenomenon and how that affects the culture of Inverness, and particularly how it affects the character she plays, Lucy, um, who you find is the what do I want to look for? The survivor of a relationship that ended in suicide. And I don't want to explain who, how, or where so much so because I don't really want to spoil it, but I will say that it tries really hard to have a trans narrative that is very not problematic, and unfortunately, because of the way the story is told, ends up being slightly problematic. So I say this in that I guess I'm going to spoil it. Sorry, I'm going to put mild spoilers in the title here. It is her best friend who has committed suicide, and you find out through flashbacks. This is told in a non-narrative way that this best friend was at first she thought a gay man, but later you discover was actually a heterosexual trans woman who was just coming into her own as a trans person when the love of her life leaves her, and that causes, among other things, her to take her own life. So she is not the only one who commits suicide in this story. There are several others throughout, because that is a um, sort of recurrent thing that happens in Inverness with their high suicide rates. However, it is the main suicide that this film is dealing with the aftermath of. However, um, because the way the film is structured, you don't really get enough time with Lucy's friend. You don't really get enough time understanding them beyond their tragic aspect of their story. You get a couple of moments where the two of them are having joy just as everyday friendship type people. Um, so, like, I give it props for really trying to be a broader trans narrative, but at the same time, it's still very much, a tragic trans story. And there's just so many of those. And there were so many tragic queer stories in the last 2 years. I cannot tell you how many I've seen. Um, and just tired of it. I want happy rom coms again, like we had in the mid '90s. I miss them. They need to come back. So that aspect aside, it is a great performance from Karen, who wrote, and directed in the film, and as the star, as well as a great supporting performance from Lee Pace as a man who's visiting Inverness. You think on a business trip, but you later discover because he's contemplating suicide, and this is how he meets the Lucy character. You can see her inspiration in art house cinema. It's very much shot in the style of an Antonioni or some of those other sort of mid-century auteurs. You can really feel that. It's also in line with some of the more contemporary Scottish cinema, like um, Bill Forsyth. There were aspects of it that felt, at least in the cinematography, like Local Hero. However, Local Hero is a very happy, small town Scotland story as opposed to a sad This is more of a like a sad train spotting kind of Scotland where everything is terrible. Um, but it's just a great performance from her, and like many an actress who is very pretty, she relishes in letting herself be unpretty. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that very much complimentary because, as any woman knows, especially if you're going through sadness, you're going to let yourself fall apart a little bit and you're going to let yourself get bags under your eyes and you're going to just look like shit. And if you're grieving, you're really going to look like shit. And I think she's an actress who often, she's so pretty and she's a model that she's not allowed to be unpretty in moments when a normal person would be unpretty. And so I think being able to take control of that narrative and allow her character to be an unpretty mess um, at times is something a lot of actresses who turn to directing want out of life. And honestly, I see it a lot more in actresses that are just in films by women in general, where the women directors let their actresses be unpretty. Um, so many movies where that happens when there would be unpretty in the situations. Great example is A Little Bit of Heaven, which is a film. It's Nicole Hassel, I think, and it's or Castle, Nicole Castle, and it stars. Um, I'm just forgetting her name. Oh God, Goldie Hawn's daughter, and her name's gone. But she gets to be really, really unpretty in that movie because she's dying of cancer, and she really, really looks like she's dying of cancer, and in a way that I think a lot of actresses, they make them look too pretty in situations where they in real life wouldn't look that nice. So I liked that about it. It also has moments of just dark gallows humor that was fun, and there's a recurrent joke about cheese that I quite enjoyed. Um, so it's not a happy movie. The party's just beginning is a really um, dark moment in the film where that line comes from. So if you're going in this, expect a sad fucking movie with a handful of jokes because it's really very much 95% drama. So I'm looking forward to more from her. I hope that she keeps making um, films because I think she has a very interesting point of view, and I think that she technically has the skills to make a gorgeous film. And this was a great first film. So this is The Party's Just Beginning. It's written, directed, and starring Karen Gillan, and it was in limited theaters, but it'll probably be out on DVD in the next couple of months. So if you can find it, definitely check it out.